back, everybody, to the SmallTown Collectibles YouTube channel. I'm Don Kerr. My guest today is a guy that is one of the first people that I really remember. When I started on YouTube, this is one of the first people that reached out to me in a comment, and has just, I've kind of watched this guy's channel grow myself as my channel grew. I'm a big fan of his. You'll see him all over the place, like literally all over the place. He's on the hit game show Lame or Frame. You come to his channel, you might see some cooking. I mean, you don't know what art, creator interviews, and he's Yara Floor's #1 fan. I'm just saying. Everybody join me in welcoming to 10 Questions, the bearded comic bro.
Man, Jimmy, thank you so much for having me. First off, that's one of the dopest intros I've ever had.
Cool. So, that was right off the top.
And hey, it was good. So yeah, I remember when actually I think you were on Rod's shout out show or something. And so I got exposed to your channel. So I was like, I gotta check this guy out because you were doing some mystery boxes, and at the time I was doing mystery boxes, and man, it's so cool to see you growing. That's what's great about this community.
Yeah, man, it's so much fun. And you're one of and I guess it's because the name Bearded Comic Bro kind of stood out to me, right? Because a few people would comment or whatever, but for whatever reason that stood out. And I think we even started having some banter about Kentucky and Ohio State and, and that kind of thing. So it was just immediate, kind of fast friends when it comes to that kind of thing. So yeah, but all right, brother, let's jump into this thing. So question 1, and question 1's pretty much the same for everybody. So what or who got you into comics?
So it was kind of a collab of everything. Like my grandparents, I always was into Batman. My grandparents knew that, and so they would record the 1966 TV series and send them to VHS tapes to me because we didn't have cable as a kid. So like that was when I really started to get exposed to Batman and my love for Batman, and then through that I kind of discovered comic books through Half Price Bookstore. I've told this a couple times. When I was a kid, there was a movie theater right next to a Half Price Bookstore, and my mom would always be like, "Hey, I'm going to take you to." She would hate that I tell this story. Like, I'll take you if you go to a movie with me. It didn't matter if like it was an R-rated movie, a PG-13. Like as a kid, like she'd be like, "And you keep it between us. I'll buy you a comic book." And so I started to grow my collection as I got to go watch really cool movies that I probably shouldn't have watched at that age. And, the whole time my mom's like, "Oh, we don't talk like that," and covering my eyes, damn parts. But, just kind of falling into the love of the characters of like Batman and the Spider-Mans and the X-Men's from the TV shows. And then discovering that there's actually a world that there's comic books that, more stories that these characters are from. So it was really cool to kind of get exposed to that as a kid, to find that.
That's a great origin story. Like, as far as your mom was super cool and was like, "All right, I really want to go watch these movies, but I got my kid and I can't go unless I take my kid. So there's a comic book store next door. Yes, you can have some books if you go." See, I think that's a great origin story.
Yeah,
yeah, I think that's awesome, man. So question 2, and this is one I've been asking more here to lately, just because I'm interested to know how people collect. So the question is this: are you a reader or a collector?
Ooh, I am both. I am hands down both. I mean, every Wednesday, if you look at my Instagram, I'm picking up 12 to 18 books a week, and I'm doing my best to try and read it. Now I'm trying to trim down my poll a little bit because it's a lot, but I also definitely, I want a nice copy, if something pops, and I want to find some of those slabs of some key books and things like that. And I'm definitely trying to grow my collection in certain areas. So I am 100% I'm 50-50 reader. And if I get a book that that's slabbed and I can't read it, I'll find it digitally so I can read it, so I can experience that story. So yeah, definitely I'm split right down the middle.
I am too. I mean, that's me. I mean, I'm a reader who collects, right? I
Yeah.
read pretty much everything I get my hands on.
Yep.
And a lot of the fun is, especially in like the older books, like even Gold and Silver Age books, is to read the ads. I mean, like that's as much fun as reading the story a lot of times. So yeah, I definitely do. You resell it all?
I haven't. I have a long box of like duplicates. I actually have another slab that I'm like, I'm gonna sell these, and I'm just like, I hate shipping. like I'm always like, I'll give this book away if you do this. I'm like, shoot, I just signed myself up to give something away. That means I gotta go to the post office. I hate it. So I don't think I'll ever be into like a full on sales page, and it'll be funny if like I look back at this, I'm like, oh, now I'm flipping my books or something. But it's hard for me. Like I like what I get, and I know what I'm getting, so I don't really want to give it away to other people. So if you get a giveaway from me or something,
it's a big deal.
It's a big deal because I'm like, do I really want to? Do I want to give this away?
That's funny. So it's something I was actually thinking about, Beardy, before we came on. I was just sitting here looking at this stack of books that I bought this week, and I was like, man, because I'm like you. I think everybody goes through that, right? Where you're trying to trim your pull list. You're like, okay, what am I not really digging? What am I totally invested in? And try to, because there's just so many good books right now to read. I think this is I don't want to say like a golden age, but I think this is a really, really good era for comics because the stories are so strong.
Yeah, you nailed it right on. I mean, you have a story for whatever tickles your fancy, right? If you want capes, you want superheroes, Marvel and DC galore for you, right? You want horror, there are some really good horror books. There's, suspense books. There's just straight up, crime solving, but it feels like with the way the indie market is, with the way Kickstarters, with all these indie publishers that are coming out, that is really allowing to open up the door for people to tell the story that they want to tell. And if you want to, you can find the type of books that you're interested in if you take the time to look.
Oh, no doubt. And I think especially for indies right now, and that's one of the questions we'll talk about here in a little bit, but, for indies right now, it's really they're pushing, in my opinion, they're pushing the big two for market share. And because there's a lot of people, man, that are reading indie books right now, and there's a lot of dope. DC has kind of gotten on that horror train. With some, and Marvel hasn't hit it yet, but there's a lot of good stuff coming out, man. And it's a fun time to read. Like a lot of the older books, Bearded, I dig as much for the art as I do anything, right? And the stories weren't great. And let's be honest, a lot of it was propaganda, depending on, the era. Like Captain America was straight up war propaganda.
Right.
And so, but the stories right now, and I think you're right. I think the fact that the indie guys, there are so many Kickstarters. There's so many ways with YouTube and other ways to get your message out there about the book you're doing that you're getting just some crazy creative stuff, that people are pushing out.
Yeah. I mean, well, because you think about back in the day, you wanted to get a book made, you had to go to a con and hopefully find some connection with a DC, a Marvel, an Image, right? And now, like a lot of these publishers, like show me your book you've already created, like that are on Kickstarter and stuff. And you have this platform of now, if you can, hey, I'm going to find someone creator, to draw for this book. I have an idea. Let's put it together. We get people to fund it, and then publishers like, oh, you're seeing a lot of books too that were started on Kickstarter that now are then being recirculated into the small presses too. So it just is an interesting time because it's so cool that you get to see so many different stories. I think you're absolutely correct.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I said it's a chore anymore. Not even call it a chore, but it's like to really trim down the pull list, right? It's hard. Like really hard. And I was doing it last night. Like I was sitting there going through, I was like, okay, what am I not digging right now? Like, because the way that I do it, okay, so this will be question 3 because I'm kind of interested to know this.
All right.
Like, how do you, like, when I go through my pull list, right, I'm like, okay, here's what I'm digging. Here's what I read first. Like, how do you trim down your pull list? Like, for me, it's, okay, what do I go to first and what's last? Like, what doesn't, like, grab me and I have to read it first? Like, how do you trim down your pull list?
So that's a great question because I'm trying to figure that out in my process right now through the midst
Right.
of it, right? Because I have way too many books that I buy on the regular, and that's okay. But what I noticed the other day, and I was talking to actually with Mars, who is the other number one fan of Yara 4.
Absolutely.
And she kind of was like, she's like, I have to make it a promise to myself that I'm going to read the books I got, because otherwise, why am I buying them in single editions and not just waiting for trade? And that really resonated with me. I was looking at my backlog of books. I had probably a short box still of just unread books, and there was one where there was like 6 single issues in an art, and I'm like, why do I just wait then, get the trade? And so what I've tried to do with filing down my pull list a little bit, is exactly what you're saying. What is always on the top of my pile? And I'll see books that slowly start to make their way down, because I'll take my picture of what I get that week, and then I'll scan them into my app, and then I'll start to look at them like, okay, which one am I first going to read? And I build my pull list, and I'm like, oh, and then you start to get to that bottom 2-3 tier on the regular, and it's probably like, okay, I can let you go.
Yeah, like one of the books that I just eliminated, just since we're talking, like one of the books I eliminated was Crossover, and Crossover I really enjoyed.
Yeah,
probably the first 3-4, and that just kind of lost me. Like, I mean, it was fine. I mean, it was fine. The story was okay, but I kept every week it slid back in my pile, and I was like, okay, this is fine. I might pick up the trade down the road and read it, but as far as buying a single every week, I'm just not that into it. So, that's one of the books I just recently did.
Yeah, and I've done that with a couple that, like, I really have enjoyed. I was enjoying Department of Truth, and I think I was just like, it kind of had slipped off the last couple issues. And so when I'm trimming down my pull list, it doesn't mean I don't like the book. And it sounds like you're kind of like, but it just is, it's not a priority anymore for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely will want to read it. And it might make me enjoy it even more taking it in trade form, because there are a lot of books that just read better in trade than they do in the single issues, because you get the whole story right at that time. So yeah, if there's a good chance if I'm pulling something off my pull list because it was important to me to make it on my pull list already, that I'm going to probably still read the story, just not in single issues.
Right. And that's kind of how I look at it. I mean, like I said, Crossover is a fine story, right? Like, it's fine. But it just kind of lost it for me. And as far as just buying the singles every week, I'm like, I don't see the point. I'll wait and buy a trade down the road. It was one of the I actually talked, and this came from Mars and Jen, when, watching the Casually Sunday comic chat. I find them insanely interesting. Like, I mean, they're so good, man. I mean, in Jen's channel, that Comics Will Break Your Heart blew up like it is. I mean, it's almost at 700 subs now. I mean, I knew when people found it, they would love it.
Yep.
Because those girls are so smart about the way that they read. But that was one of the questions I asked Jen. Like, how do you decide? What are you going to get issue 1 and then say, okay, I think I like this better in trade, or do you keep going? And so I find that an interesting question. How people read.
Yeah, and I think that's what, I don't really try to put stuff on my pull list right off the bat, because it's so hard. I feel like in this day and age with the LCS to get it off the pull list, just because like they have to order it in such an advance. So I kind of will do it where I go to 2 LCSs basically. I have mine that I have my pull list for, which is so good to me there. But then there's another one down the road that buys every single indie book possible. And I can then kind of say, okay, do I want this? And then decide to put it on my pull list at my regular LCS and try and figure out that, like, how far down the road am I going to go with reading this? And, and what do I try to attempt to read and stuff like that, for sure.
I do the same thing. I mean, I have my LCS that I go to every week. And there's the funny thing is, like, where I live in Eastern Kentucky, it's really small, right? So where we don't have the market for indie books. Not enough people buy them to really bring in. So I have a pull list with Midtown Comics. Yeah. And, and so I have a pull list with them. I have a pull list with me. I got pull lists everywhere. But I have, that part of it. I have the stuff that I want to read every week that I know I'm going to read no matter what. I get at my LCS, like Superman, because I'm a Superman nut, Action Comics. I usually get Batman, Spider-Man, Immortal Hulk. Those, and then Daredevil right now is like one of my favorite reads.
So good.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. So those are the ones that I pretty much get. And then the Star Wars Bounty Hunter thing I just added. And then the others I pretty much get at Midtown. And so it'll come in a couple of issues at a time.
Yeah.
I can give it a good read and then decide. So that's kind of how it works for me. All right. So question 4 is, why did Bearded Comic Bro start a YouTube channel?
Man, that's really funny. So how the origin of the Bearded Comic Bro YouTube channel started was very simply this. I was out back in September of 2019. I was out to dinner with my wife, and she looked at me. She goes, "Hey, I started like a fake Instagram account." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Well, I have another Instagram account from my personal one." I'm like, "What? Like, what does that even mean?" And it was like she wanted to find like a way that she could post like artsy photos, like, you know, like Magnolia Farm style, like Joanna Gaines, that type of like, and just like get that expression for her of like, but she's like, I don't want to bombard families with like my pictures of like my coffee cups and like my motivational posts and things like that. And I was like, huh. I was like, that's interesting. I was like, I just joked. I was like, I'll make a fake Instagram now too. She's like, well, what would you do it on? I was like, comic books. And so I went home then and I did it. And I went home and I started a profile, called myself the Bearded Comic Nerd on Instagram right away. And I was like, well, if this kicks, I should get a Twitter name too. So I was like, I went to Twitter, typed it in. I'm like, Bearded Comic Nerd. I was one letter too long.
Oh, no.
One letter too long on my Twitter handle. So I was like, shoot, I can't be Bearded Comic Nerd. So I was like, oh man, what's a 3-letter word? I'm like, well, I don't want to be guy. Like that just seems like, I'm like, bro, like I'm such a bro. Why would I not be? Why did I pick nerd in the first place? So I switched it to bro, then went back and switched Instagram to bro. And then I was just like, you know what? I'm going to market everything. So I was like, Bearded Comic Bro, YouTube, Bearded Comic Bro website. Like I branded all that real quick because I'm like, I had no aspirations of doing YouTube or anything like that. But I was just like, in case I do, I'm going to have Bearded Comic Bro on lockdown. And so I started to just Instagram, post books every week, every day, what I was collecting, what I was reading. I started to get into some comic collecting groups. We would chat and talk about books. And I really liked that community. But the problem was it was through text. It was through instant messenger. And I don't do good with group chats. Like
me either.
Everyone who knows this, like they'll add me to group chats on Instagram, on other YouTube channels. And I'm just like, I'll pop in like for like every couple of days that's chime in. Cause I get so lost and I feel like I missed out on conversations. So, but to speed things up, I decided like, well, I'm going to try my hand at making some YouTube videos. So like, I think my first video I did was I dropped my top 10 favorite books in from 2019, top 10 series and things like that. And I was like, I'll put out one a month. And January, February, March, I put out each a video a month. And it just started to become cumbersome to me. Like it just doesn't, I'm like, I literally told my wife, I'm like, I don't think I'm going to do this YouTube thing. I'm like trying to think up an idea of one video a month just seems like too much work, which is hilarious now. But I was just like, I don't know. And then I started to watch other YouTube channels. And that was when I discovered the community of YouTube. It was right when COVID hit. And I know like Comic Core, they were doing they did the Mainframe Comic Con, the online Comic Con. I was crushed because my wife and I were just about to go out to your neck of the woods for the Lexington Comic Con, and COVID shut everything down 2 weeks before that. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, man, and I started seeing these online cons, which then it started to expose me to the YouTube comic community that I had never found, watching people like the comic Jabroni and him talking about his love for Batman villains and getting to see stuff like that, and watching John and talk about his all these different things. And then I found Rod, and I was watching Bruce and Stephanie, and interacting, and I started to interact on these shows like a lot of people do. I think it's really fun to see, because you'll see a lot of these channels that always start out in people's chats, and commenting and interacting. And as I started to see what the YouTube community could be, I started to get a lot of ideas. I stole ideas, to make them my own and things like that, and just tried out my foot, and man, I fell in love with it.
It's crazy, isn't it? I said, it is such a big part of my life now.
Yeah.
To where, I was watching DJ Links last night in the mix. My boy Slotted Up was on there, and I was watching that, and DJ asked Slot, he said, how has it changed your everyday life? And it's changed my life a lot, actually, as far as my day-to-day routine. It's changed it a lot. I've had to slide it in. At times it is a chore and it's a grind, but I get a lot of joy from it.
Right.
And it's as much to do. We've talked about it on here a lot. I think everybody talks about it, especially with COVID and kind of being trapped. It gave you that human interaction that you needed, that you weren't getting out every day, in your normal life.
Yep. Yeah, it's crazy. And it's so, I think once people discover the community, because it's hidden. It really is hidden. Cause I was putting out content, but I wasn't searching for it. And once I discovered it, man, it was a great discovery, because these are now connections and relationships and stuff where I'm talking with my friends, because that's kind of why I went into the Instagram aspect, because none of my friends collected comics. None of my people, like on my Facebook pages, on my personal accounts, if I posted about Comic Cons, like, oh, you guys are nerds for going to Comic Cons. I'm like, I'm meeting people from the office and shows that you guys watch, and I'm a nerd because I'm going to a con. But
yeah, right.
I am a nerd, but
well, I am too. But and that's the thing. It's funny that you say that, because I started my own Instagram, the whole thing, because nobody that I know, is really into comics. Now, I've made some connections with some people here locally that I was friends with that I had no idea they were hidden like I was. And we've kind of hooked up. I don't know if you ever seen Never Could Figure It Out, come across any of your stuff.
Yet.
But
I don't think so.
He's a guy that's in a lot of stuff, and he lives 10 minutes from me.
Awesome.
Biggie Shack lives like an hour from me.
Yep.
You're not that far from me, really. And so it's interesting. Like I said, it's been phenomenal. So I can't leave this. I'm going to make this question 5, okay? Because it's something you said, and it's never been talked about on here before.
Okay.
And I don't feel like people talk about it enough. But there needs to be a real discussion about Instagram group chats. There's too many. And I'm like you. Look, dude, I am in several. I never post ever. I've been joking with everybody here lately. I'm like, what do you fools do? How do you buy any of the comic books that you buy? Because you guys are posting on Instagram and these group chats all day long. You're not working. So what's going on? Am I the only person that feels this way about Instagram group chats?
Nope. I have some friends. I'm not gonna put them on blast, but who are like, they will, if you add them in a group chat, they will instantly unremove themselves from the group chat. So a lot of these ones I'm muted in. Well, the problem, and y'all are watching, you guys are in our group chat, so take offense to this. No, just
yes, be offended.
But it's a classic, hey, good morning. And then you get 18 different people in that group that say good morning to you. And I'm like, so do I need to say good morning? Or has everyone, it's kind of like, and people in the chat, when they go through and every single person says your name when you go onto a live stream, you're like, I don't have, wait, I got to go back. But yeah, I don't know. I'm in a lot of them that are muted. Because the thing is, a lot of them are with the same people.
Yeah, I'm in the same group chat with in 5 different group chats with basically the same folks.
So there's ones now that I'm like, okay, hey, look, if I'm creating a group chat for a show, I'll tell hey, we're talking about the show. Let's keep it here as stuff about the show. You guys want to talk about other stuff? Let's do this, just because I know how bogged down I can get with group chats of just there's so many, and I'm like, so I have to mute most of them. And when I can pop in and say something, I will. And like just the other day I was in one and was like, hey guys, make sure you guys are posting your videos here. And I was like, okay, I saw it. I was like, well, since you asked, that's in my video. I was like, but yeah, man, y'all are talking a lot and y'all make fun of me about being on YouTube so much, but you guys are on Instagram chat a lot more than I am on YouTube.
Yes, like I mean, like there's like I ended up having to mute myself. That's the one thing that I figured out that I could do, and I say a lot of this in jest because there's a lot of funny content.
It is.
I mean, in these chats, like I really enjoy it. Sometimes it's just what I read. Like I'll sit and just read the chats. I never comment. That's just I'm not that guy. Like I'll comment on a YouTube video now if I'm watching one just because. But in the past, I would have never done that. Like I would just watch it, enjoy it, and I don't get to comment. Like I watch everybody's stuff because I drive. I say this all the time too, but I drive a lot, so I watch people's stuff. I just can't comment because I'm driving. So I watch a lot of the content. I just can't, But I just felt like that was an important. It never been talked about on 10 Questions, and it's something I feel like
first time I dig off all our friends that are on 10 Questions.
Yeah, we're both getting unsubbed right now. As
the first person comes on 10 Questions and loses subscribers because he agreed to all the. But I mean, hey, that's what it's for.
We're trying to be honest, folks. This is an honest show, and we're trying to be. Therapy. That's right. I just needed to, I really needed to talk to somebody about that. I don't know why Bearded was the guy, but it's something that's been on my mind. He just has that face, it's the beard. It makes you feel comfortable and safe, and you can talk.
Yes, it's a safe space.
All right, so question 6 is this, and I want to talk about some of the stuff that you do, right, on your channel. First off, Lame Reframe, right? So that is, outside of Rigged, probably my favorite game show on YouTube, right? Like, I freaking love it. And when I was on it, dude, I was nervous as hell. Like, I was, and I am not the type of guy that generally gets really, really nervous about things. I was scared to death. And Ron kept saying, Jimmy's awful quiet. And I was like, dude, I'm scared to death. I'm afraid to talk. And then I got Dustin from Two Brothers Comics sitting over here. I got Bearded. I got all these people I don't know. And I haven't drawn anything in years. And I got to do this in 2 minutes with some crayons. What's happening? Like, talk to me. Rod, talk to me a little bit about it. But kind of tell me how your involvement happened with Lame Reframe.
So I got, like I said, early on in the community, I started to follow John and Edwin and Rod and really supported what they were doing and watching their channels. And I was one of those people that would just watch Lame Reframe. I didn't really comment. I always liked drawing as a kid. I wanted to go into animation when I was in college, and I ended up not doing that. But so art's always been a part of my life. So I was really intrigued by the concept. And one of the shows, Rod, one time was like, you think you got what it takes, to draw and hang with us? You got the coconuts. And I was like, I can draw against these fools. So I messaged him one time and I was like, hey man, anytime you need someone, just let me know. I'll hop on. And at that time they were doing it where it was whoever won that last week then would stick around. Well, person that won last week couldn't make it on, so they needed to fill in. And Rod's like, "Hey, do you wanna do this?" I was like, "Sure." And so then I was just kind of that group chat casually, like, "Hey, anytime you wanna come." And my first time ever was water paints, and I almost won, and I didn't, and I was so mad. And then the second time it was Play-Doh, and I'm like, man, I'm not getting to represent. I can't draw what the talent that we have on the show now with Cardboard Crazies and Actual Dracula and Roscoe and all those guys. I can't compete there, but I'm like, I can draw a good cartoon if I get the opportunity. But I was getting so mad because I'm like, I don't want to do Play-Doh. I don't want to do watercolors. But they brought me, and then finally brought me on and for that, and just slowly kept going as to being on the show regularly, drawing a lot. And man, it was a lot of fun.
Dude, it is. I mean, it really is a lot of fun. I end up having such a good time, and I hadn't drawn like that in a while, and my stuff wasn't awful. It was it wasn't great, but it wasn't awful. Hell, half the fun is the bad stuff. Like, that's half the attraction to the show is to see how bad people really draw. And then you do get the people like Cardboard and Roscoe and those guys that can just freaking smoke it. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. And that's what's so fun is, and that's kind of seeing the talent. And the All-Star show is actually why I started to become judging with Rod and on the show, because 36, when the show started, 36 Chambers was the judge, and he still is the judge of Lame or Frame. Just putting that out there, gang. Like, anytime he wants to come back and be the judge, it's his chair. I'm just keeping it warm. But he was then going to be on they wanted him to actually draw in the All-Star competition. So Rod was like, I need someone to judge. And a lot of the regular people were busy that week. And I became a regular contestant on the show. So Rod's like, hey, you want to do it? I was like, sure. And this was like 36 was drawing. We had the guy who did the artwork from Sea of Sorrows was on drawing. Like it was a who's who of all stars. And I'm sitting there just judging. And I'm like, I feel bad. Like, cause I'm dogging on these like really talented artists, like just to try and make it entertaining. And then from there, 36 work started picking up with his stuff. So it was like, I kind of just started doing it regularly more often. And now it seems like it's a regular thing.
And there you go. I always see on there. So yeah. And you're one of my favorite parts of it, to be honest with you. Like, you're and Rod's kind of banter back and forth. Your commentary is one of my favorite things. So, let's talk a little bit about your channel. Like,
yeah,
I like the different content that you do. Right. So this is going to be question 7, I guess, where talk to me, like people who are watching this that don't necessarily know what you do. Like one of my favorite things, and I hope it becomes a more regular spot, is you and your wife cooking. I find your wife hilarious.
She's awesome.
And yeah, she's awesome. I mean, like, and I find that hilarious, and that, I love the cooking. I'm a big fan of the creator interviews. I always enjoy those when you do those. But like, what's your favorite thing that you do on your channel?
That's tough, because how I've shifted my channel, like, is I'm only really doing stuff that I like.
Right.
And because if you go back, I did a lot of unboxings, like we talked about, like that's how I first got to meet. And it just felt like it was becoming a chore for me of like, and people do unboxings a lot better than I did. So I was just like, I don't know. Like I never was able to spec on stuff, because like I've told the story. I'm like, I bought Once and Future and Something's Killing the Children both came out at the same time. I bought 2 copies of Once and Future because I'm like, this is gonna blow up, and well, made the wrong choice there. So specking's never my game. So I was always trying to figure out ways to do stuff. And kind of how that thinking was, people used to do that where they bring their wife onto their channel or their mother-in-law or something onto their channel and have them try and guess characters.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I can do that. Like, it'll be fun. And so then I did it one time, and one of the comments was like, that wasn't fair. And it was from Bruce and Stephanie too. They were like, you should let her quiz you. And I'd never seen that aspect done on this kind of thing. And so she quizzed me then, and then it kind of got back into the, well, I'm going to quiz you back. And just kind of, so we started to create content like that for us. And that's where my mind started to shift to, like, how can I create content that comic book lovers will enjoy, but also people that don't like comic books would enjoy or have fun with it? Or if you're a comic book YouTuber, you could watch it with your significant other or family. And so it's kind of how my mind started to shift. And so like, I was trying to think outside the box of what are different things that people do. So Name That Character has become a kind of a staple on our show of every Friday nights, where my wife and I get to, have fun in that. And she is by far my favorite thing about YouTube right now, is that she has gotten sucked into this hobby and love of mine. And she always went to cons with me and always did stuff with me, but she's been like the most supportive of this kind of side project of doing YouTube. And the fact that then now she's a very active role in my channel is awesome. So that's probably my favorite thing that I create, is anything I create with her. But then I love my creator interviews. That's getting to connect with the people who are creating stuff that I love just is so cool to me, because that was one of my favorite things at cons, is just getting to talk to a creator and say like, man, I love what you did, or how you wrote this, or your artwork here was fantastic. And so to then just get to sit down with some of these creators who I'm like, you would have told me 2 years ago I'd have like Mark Russell on my show, who was one of my favorite writers, you know, and just did the Fantastic Four story a couple weeks ago that came out, you know, or Daryl Banks, you know, like having him on my show talking, co-creator my favorite Green Lantern. Like, are you kidding me? To have those conversations. So I love those. And it's funny you mentioned the cooking show. So we have the Bearded Cooking Bro show, and that spawned out of a conversation that happened on Lamer Frame. And that's what I love about how YouTube just brings everything together. I just saw read an issue of where they were talking about Green Arrow's chili. And I was like, I wonder if there's a recipe. So I Googled it, and I found that they published Green Arrow's chili in a recipe in a comic book one time. And so I jokingly was talking about this in Lamer Frame. I'm like, man, somebody should do a cooking show and like comic themed cookbook. And the comments were blowing up in there of like, oh my goodness, that'd be so funny. Like everyone, like, shoot, did I just share my good idea with everyone else? And so I texted my wife instantly. I'm like, are you watching this? She goes, we're doing a cooking show, aren't we?
I love it.
We filmed it. Literally, we filmed it the next day. I put it out the next day because I'm like, I'm getting this done now, because if someone puts out a comic themed cooking show before me, I'm gonna be so mad at myself.
Well, I mean, I loved it. Like, I pulled over. This is a true story. Was driving, had it on, and I was like, this is awesome. And I pulled over and commented on your video. And then hit play and started driving again. So, I mean, like, I thought it was a great idea, and I really enjoyed it. And you guys have a good chemistry, obviously. Yeah. So, you know, but I loved it, man. I think that's great. So now we cannot leave question 7 without, I have to know, because I have not watched the video yet.
All right.
But why are you Yara Flor's #1 fan?
So, this actually came up on a YouTube video as well. So I do a Friday night show on, used to be Hero and the Kid. It's now Wildebeest Fitness. It's with me, Comics Will Break Your Heart, Jennifer, Samantha Renee, and Fire Guy Ryan, who does a lot of stuff with Comic Tom. And we are all on the show together, and we always try and narrow down books that we want to talk about. Well, one of the books at one point I wanted to talk about was Future State Wonder Girl, Joelle Jones. I thought her art was fantastic on it, but it just didn't make our cut. And so just being me during the episode, like, there we go. So what's your thoughts on whatever book we were reading? And I was like, well, I liked it, but I don't know if you've ever heard of a book called Wonder Girl. And I would always, and so like, it just was that shtick the whole night of like, I would pull that book every time. And it was an episode where we had Mars on, and that's where our friendship kind of grew right there, because I really did enjoy the character. I really enjoyed the book, and we kind of just, our friendship blossomed into like, we called ourselves the Yara Floor fan club. You know, we were biggest fans. And so again, trying to just think of just different content, I reached out to Mars and I was like, you know what? Issue 1 came out. It's not getting talked about enough right now. Like, you want to do a Yara Floor fan club show? And she's like, yes. So I mean, it's definitely, it's fun to watch, but I mean, that's kind of the origin of why, but I got into Wonder Girl, but man, yeah, watch episode 1 if you guys haven't, because we really do go into why we like this character a lot. It's a lot of fun for sure.
I'll be watching. I just hadn't had a chance to watch it yet. Like, it popped up on my notification. I added it to I have a playlist where I put stuff. So, and it popped up. And so I was like, yeah, I just hadn't had a chance to watch it yet. But I saw it and I was like, what? Like, I know Mars, right? Like, watching Mars, one of my favorite things about Mars is her boy-girl crushes on these different comic book characters. Like, that shit cracks me up. Like, I think it's funny. She gets so excited. I don't know. That's one of the things I love about her. So, all right, question 8. What do you believe? And I've been prefacing this question because I've asked it on like the last 8 episodes, but I've gotten a different answer every time.
Ooh, no pressure.
None. So what do you believe is the single biggest challenge to the comic book collector today?
Ooh. The single biggest challenge? Man, that's tough. Because, yeah, wow, you got me. Very rarely do I not have something to say. I'm in shock. But I want to think about this. Biggest challenge to comic book collectors, man. You know what? I'm gonna say is this is gonna sound weird because of what we're doing right now. Almost like us is the biggest challenge as content creators. Because I think what happens is we get into this kind of mindset of this fear of missing out, right? Or we got to get these big books so people will like our Instagram posts or or watch our videos. We've got to get the next big mystery box. We've got to get the next big key so people will like our channel. And I think that's a dangerous trap that we can get into. And that's what I kind of was like. I had to step back from mystery boxes because I'm like, I was buying 4 so I could do a mystery unbox every week. And I'm like, I don't have that kind of money when I'm still buying all the new comic books I'm getting and things like that. And so I think as a collector, getting into other collectors is one of the biggest, hardest things about collecting is seeing what other people have and going, I want that,
That's a great answer, dude. And that's the thing here. And I don't mean to cut you off, but that's a different answer than I've gotten. And that's a great answer. That's the reason I keep asking this question, because I get something different every time. But you're right. And here's the thing. When I started the channel, I was buying every freaking mystery box coming and going, dude. And that thing gets expensive. Yes. You know what I'm saying? And then you kind of figure out, as you kind of get used to it, you kind of back it off. Like I said, we were talking about backing off your pull list. It's kind of the same thing when you do a channel. I think that's a great answer. All right, continue. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. And but that's where I think we can get so wrapped up into what other people have that we then think like, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, there are stuff like, Freaky Lou, held up a 3 Ninjas comic book one time, and I said, I need to have that. Now, it was a $4 book, so it's pretty easy to get, or Dustin holds up I think I held up a Hook comic book from the movie, from the Robin Williams movie, and he's like, I need to have that. So, that's part of the collecting too, but I think it's when we get to, this idea of, I need to have it so I can put up this people like my channel and like my content, and then it just is an unhealthy habit for us of buying. And I have to watch that a lot with me personally. And so I don't say this as a knockdown. I say this as a reminder to myself of man, why are you buying what you're buying? Do you really like it? Do you really need a first appearance of Crush? No, I don't. So but do I need would you rather have 8 little first appearances, or would you rather have that one book, that you've been hunting for to get that, and and then just post other content on your channel? And so it's for me, it's a reminder of hey, keep my collection what I want it to be.
Yeah, no, and like I said, man, I think that is a phenomenal answer. And again, it's a different answer than I've gotten. Every time I ask it, I get something different. That's why I love it. So no, I think that's great. As far as the, what was I going with here? Because you hit a fair point as far as I completely lost my train of thought. Completely.
It happens. Yeah,
completely. And I've done 32 episodes of this, not yet lost my train of thought. So we'll stop there and we'll go with question 9. How's that? Right. I was getting ready to go on an epic rant. And
I hope it comes back. And
if it comes back, I will. There's no hesitation of me talking, Bearded. And if it comes back, I will 100% bring it to you. So
good.
All right. So number 9, what is the book that you would love to have that you don't have right now?
So I want desperate, and I always mess up the number. I'm pretty sure it's 171. I need that Batman first Silver Age appearance of Riddler. It's either 171 or 181 or 179. There's like all these three keys that I'm hunting for, and I always mix them up. I think it's 171 because I think 181 is the Poison Ivy, but I desperately want that Riddler book, and because I just feel like it's gonna go up so much soon once hype comes back on of the Batman. And it's a beautiful cover.
It is a beautiful cover.
It's just something I've been on the look for, and I don't even care what grade it is. I just want to own it. Like I did that with the Scarecrow for Silver Age appearance of Scarecrow. Like I wanted to own that. It's beat up, and I'm like, because I can always upgrade if I need to. But I want to just have it in my possession to own.
Me too. That's a great answer, and that's a great book too. I'm like you. That's a beautiful, beautiful cover. How do you collect? Do you like right now? Like I feel the need to complete something, right? Like I've been talking about this a little bit. Like I need to complete something. I'm a completionist, and that's really hard when you're a collector. But I've been able to kind of, I guess, bring that back somewhat, and not buying everything that's out there. But like sometimes I got to scratch the itch, right? So. Do you do that? Like, do you have to do that? Like, complete something?
Oh, I mean, yeah. So yes and no. I am a completionist to a degree, and you'll get what I'm saying here in a second. So one of my big things was Batman is what got me back into comics. Batman Volume 3. I went to a local comic book shop because I kind of took a break from comics for like 10, 12 years between high school and just life. A shop opened up. I saw it and I'm like, I'm going to go. And the guy's like, what do you like? I was like, Batman. So I think it was like Batman 55. So the wedding stuff had just happened, all that stuff. I went back and tried to find every single issue from Volume 1 or Volume 3 to read so I could then read 55. I'm like, because I really enjoyed issue 55. And I was like, this is really dope. I want to read this whole story. So I started to go back, trying to collect it. I started reading it digitally so I could, and then trying to go back. And so I became a completionist from there. Well, then I was like, well, I've got Volume 3 complete. I got to go back to Volume 2. There's only like, 50 books, or 52 books. Like I can do that. I was like,
yeah.
So I did that. And I go, well, I got 2. I got 3 complete. I got to go to 1. And I will never be complete with Volume 1 because
little price difference in those.
Little price difference. So my goal now with Volume 1 is to get everything from 200 up, and then anything under is icing on the cake, right? So I've set my goal as a realistic goal for my completionist is to have every issue from Batman Volume 1 from 200 to 713. And I'm probably about 60 books away from completing that. And I've got a lot of ones in the 100 sprinkled in, but man, they're just too pricey.
They are, dude. That's an expensive book to try to jump on for sure. Like mine, I'm going to work on. I love Daredevil, and so I've been working on a Silver Age Daredevil run. I have most of the big books, not all of them, but I have most of them. And for whatever reason, I want to complete that run, and so that's what I'm going to do. And Action Comics too. As much as I love Superman, I want to put an earlier. It's kind of the same thing with the Batman books, right? Once you get below 200, geez, those books are stupid.
Right.
And so I have a few, like you said, sprinkled here and there. So all right, last question, question 10. What channels does the Bearded Comic Bro recommend that my viewers watch? Something that I might not be watching myself right now, and somebody that I may need to have on 10 questions.
Okay. Man, first off, I give him grief all the time, but one channel I watch on the regular is John's Comics with Kids. If I'm sure people have mentioned it because I know who you've had on the channel before. He's one of my good friends in the community. We've created content together, and he collects in a way that's somewhat similar to mine. and how he like what he likes and what he does. And so and that just like he has his Saturday morning show that he does with his girls, which once, I'm going to watch, I try to watch every Saturday morning, and, his 2 girls, and I have 2 girls, and I'm like, so I watch that like as like his are, 5, 6 years older than mine. I'm like, I see that, I'm like, okay, I want to see how they're getting into collecting. How can I get my girls into because they love reading comics and they love doing it. So I look at that to try and say like, what are ways that I can get to share this hobby and this passion with my girls, as they grow, like, cause I'm doing that with my wife right now. We're sharing that. So John's Comics with Kids is one that I watch on the regular, a lot. Obviously, anything Just a Rican, Rod puts out, I watch for, but I'm going to now throw in, my Yara Floor fan club co-host, Mars, that comic girl. Gang, she puts out content probably every couple weeks, but when she does, it is fantastic. She's always on the regular, every Sunday with Jennifer with Comics Will Break Your Heart. But what she puts out, and the time that she puts into editing her videos, if you haven't watched an edited video by that comic girl, you are missing out, because she puts in the aesthetic of her shots, of how she edits the video, and then what she talks about. She makes me look like a fool when it comes to my knowledge about DC characters and DC heroes, and she is super knowledgeable. And so check her out. Like, I think you guys would love her content. So
I love Mars, man. Her and Jen really are. That's how I've always described it on Comics Will Break Your Heart. It's a high level chat about comic books.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's really deep and it's really articulate, and it's, all those things. And you're right, Mars's channel, that comic girl, if you go over, her videos are next level. Like, they are really good. They're pieces of art in the way that she does them. And you're right, she's so knowledgeable. And I think that's a great channel recommendation. People ought to go over there. I shouted her out in my hashtag Grow Together giveaway video because I dig Mars, man. I think she's cool. So, and I've yet to meet her, but she's somebody who will definitely end up on 10 Questions at some point, because I want to get to know her. So That's what happened with Jen. Is I was watching the channel. I was like, dude, I need to get to know this girl. Like, I guarantee that me and Jen don't agree on much of anything outside of comic books, but I love her. And I think she's great, man. And same thing with Mars. So it's awesome. It is funny. It's how it brings the world together, right? I say it all the time. If the world acted like the comic book community, it would be a whole lot better place.
Such a better place.
Yeah. Bearded man, that was fun. Like, I really enjoyed that, man. And I hope you had a good time.
I had a blast.
I'm, like I said, a big fan. I'll put all Bearded stuff down in the description below. You can go over and catch him out on Rod's channel with Lame Refrain. Today, well, we're recording this on a Saturday, so at 2:00 today he's on another show. Like, my dude's literally everywhere, so you can catch him all the time. Guys, we appreciate you coming hanging out with us for just a little while. Of course, want to always remind you about our code with Street Level Hero LA. That's STC10. Use that code. It's 10% off your order, but most importantly, 25% of your overall order goes to the American Cancer Society for cancer research. Very important cause to me. Lost a lot of my family members with cancer, and we just keep going because, like, it was only supposed to be for a limited time, bro. And people were using the code, and we were like, all right, let's just keep doing this and see how much money we can actually raise.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah. So, guys, what can I say? The Bearded Comic Bro, go check him out. Go watch Name That Character with his wife, the cooking show, the whole thing. Like, you will not be sorry. He's one of my favorites, and he should be one of yours. So, guys, as I always end this bad boy, until next time.